Welcome to First Things First. I'm Jen Wolf. That is Chris Carter, who is in the NFL Hall of Fame. I'll tell you why we're talking about that in a little bit. This is Nick Wright. What is up, guys? Nick Wright, you got a big night ahead of you tonight.
Got a big day. Hopping on a plane after the show. Go to Cleveland for Game 4.
Yeah, you are.
I've already booked the flight, if necessary, refundable to Game 6 because Chris said he'll buy the tickets if the Cavs get there. So let's hope we have a good weekend of basketball starting today.
Yes, I look forward to it. Look forward to it. Beautiful Friday.
Yeah.
You guys look great. Jenna, amazing dress.
Thank you.
Your hair, Freddie.
Thank you.
Nick, we got to live with the rest of that. Jenna and I will.
If the audience doesn't know, when
good.
Cece says Freddie, Freddie is what Jenna nicknames her hair. So it's Jenna and her
not
hair,
true.
Freddie.
No, Jenna wakes up like that.
This is how I wake up, guys. just like the two of you. Hilarious.
I get to the meeting before you. I know that's not true. Oh, I'm sorry.
That is low before the. That was way below the belt.
Spicy Friday.
It is spicy Friday. They're telling me in my ear we got to go. The NBA season could come down to tonight, guys. Game 4 of the finals. The Warriors are in Cleveland. They are looking for their third title in 4 years. I ask you, smart NBA fans out there, should this series be closer than it is? Could the Cavs mount the unprecedented comeback? Would we be in this situation if the Cavs had one Kyrie Irving? An anonymous Cavs veteran player told The Athletic he has, quote, no doubt that they would, in fact, be up 3-0 on the Warriors with Kyrie Irving. CC, I'll start with you. Did the Kyrie trade cost the Cavs the title?
I'm not going to just, think if Kyrie was there. Right now, Kyrie is recovering from a knee surgery that he had mentioned that he was going to disclose that to the Cavs if they didn't trade him. He was going to have surgery and have to sit out. I'm not a person that likes to live in that make-believe world of, if this guy was here. And especially, you got to give a lot of credit to the Golden State Warriors. So if you do that, if you said Kyrie is there, if you could create that scenario in your brain, you're also just taking something away from Golden State because we're just assuming that Golden State, if they had another player, that Golden State didn't have another level that they could play at. Now, would the teams be more evenly matched? Yes. Is Kevin Love going to play the way he played in the last game, or is he going to play like the other games when Kyrie and LeBron were there? Because when he was the third guy, he was not really good in the series with Golden State. So the numbers won't support that. I don't know what the numbers are, but I don't think the numbers will support that. And the reality of, I know LeBron doesn't think this way. You're talking about an anonymous Cavs player.
It's not LeBron.
I know it's not LeBron because you can't have the type of success that he's had overcoming the things he's been able to overcome and try to live in the past. So yeah. I know LeBron's not sitting around saying that if Kyrie made a decision and he wanted to be traded, they traded him. So I know LeBron at that point moved on. But would it be a better matchup? Of course it would. They got no one that can do nothing with Kyrie late in the games. And we've seen all these games within the last 10 minutes of the game, Nick, they were within 10 points.
Which is, by the way, that was not the case last year when Kyrie was there. All right, so, I'm going to reject this
Kyrie
premise.
was there, and they were down.
They were down 3-0.
3-0
The first
with
two
Kyrie.
games, they were blown out.
Yes.
Game 3 was close last year. This year, they ended up blown out in Game 2, but it was a 3-possession game late in Game 2, and it was a 1-point game in the final minutes of Games 1 and Games 3. That's without Kyrie versus with Kyrie. CeCe's first point's the most important one. Does Kyrie staying on Cleveland heal his knee? Even if the I'll have preemptive surgery was a bluff, does the surgery he did end up needing to have not happen? If that's not the case, then what are we even talking about here? If the Cavs want to play, some of the Cavs want to play a make-believe scenario, there's a more interesting make-believe scenario, but it's not about Kyrie. It's about Kevin Love and Kelly Olynyk from 4 years ago. There's a fun thought exercise. If Kelly Olynyk doesn't rip out Kevin Love's shoulder, LeBron's first year back in Cleveland, and Kevin Love is healthy for that playoff run, and therefore Kyrie doesn't have to play as much in the second round against the Bulls on a bad knee, do they win that title? If we want to keep playing the make-believe scenario, if they've won that title and the Thunder don't blow a 3-1 lead to the Warriors, KD never goes to Golden State.
Yeah.
And LeBron potentially right now today is going for his 4th straight championship and his 6th title to match Jordan. But that's not the world in which we live. If the Cavs, here's something nobody on Cleveland wants to admit. You know the trade that there is no defense for, that we now look back on it? The trade they got nothing out of? The trade that they literally got nothing in return for?
Dwayne Wade.
Dwayne Wade. How about that? How about after the deadline, when they had to remake their team, and they were smart for remaking their team because LeBron was almost checking out, Isaiah Thomas wasn't going to fit, they had to make those moves. Now, did they get the best players for those moves? That's a different discussion. But the courtesy trade for Dwayne Wade.
As a favor.
As a favor, we'll get a highly protected 2nd-round pick we'll never see, so you can go to Miami. You think Dwayne Wade couldn't have been more productive in Jordan Clarkson's minutes in Games 1 and Games 2? You think Dwayne Wade couldn't have been a calming force down the stretch in Game 3? They got nothing for him. So if you want to play make-believe trades, giving a player away because it was the nice thing to do, that one you have more reason to scrutinize than the Kyrie trade, which at least there was a rationale for it. Kyrie demanded to be demanded.
So
to be
that's
traded.
it. You both said the same thing. These anonymous players, whoever it is, that's like, we could have been better if Kyrie. Kyrie didn't want to be here. Kyrie's the one that asked for the trade. It's not like the Cavs got rid of him and everyone else was like, no, you need to stay and help us. Kyrie didn't want to play for this Cavs team. He didn't want to play with LeBron. He didn't want to play with everyone else. How does that factor in the whole thing? I don't even know if this would have been a scenario. He didn't want to be there. Well,
he wants his own team. Like people, so it, for one, the anonymous Cav, all right, it can only be 4 players, all right? Either
Who
JR.
are the 4 players?
All right, JR, Tristan, Kevin Love, or LeBron.
It's got to be, because they describe him as veteran Cavs, been on the 4 guys that have been there for all 4 finals.
Yeah, so when a player is not happy, and the thing Nick pointed out as far as Kyrie's knee, happy or unhappy if he can't play, if he's not 100% going against Steph and Clay, LeBron still needs help. Kyrie is a phenomenal player. And we'll go through a lot of these scenarios after the season when we don't have a lot of topics and everything to talk about. But the Cavs, without support, have been in all 3 of these games. So you're saying if they had another superstar, would they be up? Yes, but if the superstar don't want to be there, the superstar now is all out with a long-term injury, his 4th knee surgery. So that's a lot of hypotheticals to be able to get to be able to be ahead 3-0 on one of the greatest collection of basketball players that we've seen. Because not only is this player saying they'd be up 3-0, but it's who they're up against. So that right there is it's just hard for me to put all those things to get my brain to think, wow, if they had Kyrie, what would happen?
You don't have to add another player to make the argument this series should be 2-1 Golden State. You don't have to add another player to say this series could be 2-1 Cleveland. In order to get to 3-0, you've got to do a lot of mental gymnastics.
They could have won Game 1. They had Game 1.
I would argue that Game 1, the Cavs should have won. Game 3, Golden State should have won. And Game 2, clearly Golden State should have won. So,
yes.
I think the way it should be, I know should is a tough word, but the way it could have been easily is 2-1 Golden State right now. I want to make this part clear on the Kyrie thing. I didn't believe then, I don't believe now, that they had to trade Kyrie Irving. I think that you can say, I can't remember the last time an NBA player actually held out. The last time an NBA player under contract said, I'm just not showing up. Eric Bledsoe tweeted his way out of Phoenix, but they sent him home. He didn't refuse to show up. Guys under contract with multiple years left on a contract don't not show up if you hold the fort. And I know later in the show we're going to talk about Brian Colangelo and the GM situation.
Did that play a factor?
Having stability at the top of your organization always matters.
Absolutely.
And could the situation have been if David Griffin were still there when LeBron wants to keep Kyrie? If those 2 guys are your 2 most powerful people in the organization are still in place, then there is a scenario where Kyrie is still a Cav, but that's not the scenario in which played out.
And they put a rookie general manager in place that Kyrie was able to put pressure on him. That was actually one of the first moves that he had to do. So as a rookie general manager, man, that's a tough. With the ownership that they have there in Cleveland, if David Griffin is there, I believe there's a different result.
And people should also know, with the rookie GM, before Kyrie demands the trade, according to all reporting, one of the reasons he ended up demanding the trade was it got out that the new GM was discussing trade scenarios. Does a veteran GM make sure, listen, if we're going to discuss trading Kyrie Irving, there's going to be 3 people in this room, and I trust all of them with my life, as opposed to a rookie GM that's like, I can trust everyone on the staff, that it's not going to. So there's a lot of things we can do what-ifs about Kyrie. I don't think any of them involve the Cavs being up 3-0 on the most talented team ever put together.
All right, let's take a break. Coming up on the other side, you want to talk some football? Why isn't Terrell Owens going to Canton? That's next on First Things First.
It's unbelievable.
5, Devontae Smith-Pelly dives, sneaks it right past Marc-Andre Fleury for the goal. The Capitals winning a Stanley Cup for the first time in their 44-year history.
Man, D.C.'s been a bit of a tortured sports town basically since Joe Gibbs left. And so, good for them. Good for the Caps.
And good for Las Vegas. Look how far they got. I
don't really care about them.
Really?
They're an expansion team. Like, their fans have had no suffering. They've had no pain.
I don't know about that. All right, let's move on to Terrell Owens. The NFL Hall of Fame made him wait 3 years to join their exclusive club. And as a thank you, he's not showing up. T.O. Terrell Owens publicly declined his invitation to attend the August Hall of Fame enshrinement ceremony for reasons unknown. He said he wishes to celebrate one of the most memorable days of his life elsewhere. Cece, what was your reaction to this as a member of the Hall of Fame?
I was disappointed because I know that, through this process, you go through a lot of different emotions. And I can say I felt a lot like T.O. when I wasn't let in. Let alone the first year, but the first several years. But realizing there's a process to everything in life. And life is not perfect. But since I've been in, and I remember when I got selected, I remember the call. I remember how special it was. And it wasn't like, man, good news is never late. So all those 5 years that I waited, when they called me, like all those things and all those bad memories that I had, like they were immediately washed away. And then I was invited to being on the greatest team ever assembled. And the thing that's funny about sports is it has a lot to do with your overall attitude, because you can't control how much ability God gives you. You can't control your height. You can't control some of those things. But in life, this is what I have learned. You can control what kind of teammate you're going to be. Like, you got control over that. We're on an even playing field. There is no one taller, shorter, more explosive. Oh, he got short area quickness. Oh, he can shoot. No, anybody can be a good teammate. And part of the reason why T.O. was not in the Hall, he should have been in the first ballot, was because people said that he was a bad teammate. Now, for me, when Buddy Ryan cut me, he told me there were specifically things that I couldn't do. I was only effective in the red zone. I only caught touchdowns. I wasn't dependable, wasn't a great route runner. Now, I had a couple choices. I could either listen to him and try to take something out of it, or I could be in pursuit to try to make Buddy Ryan wrong. Now, T.O., for me, because I remember in talking to Jim Trotter, who's one of the 47 people selecting for the Hall of Fame, right when I got selected, he said, Chris, I hope you don't take this out on the voters. And immediately I told him, no, I'm not going to take it out. This is about the people that helped me on this long journey to get here. It's not going to be about me. It's going to be about the people that washed my uniform, the people that encouraged me before I was popular. And it's going to be about the people when it wasn't popular to be on Chris Carter's bandwagon, that they hung in there with me. I want the world to know, and I want the football population to know, these people were important in my life, and T.O. is going to miss that. T.O. talks all the time about his grandmother raising him and everything. His grandmother is getting robbed of her moment. I saw someone's application, someone in my close proximity, and they applied for a job, a world-renowned job. And what I said about them in my Hall of Fame speech was attached to the application. So for me, I know how much it changed my mom. Man, my mom, they told her so many things. She got kicked out of high school, 7 kids before she was 25. My mom asked me, what are you going to say on that day? I said, Mom, I'm going to make sure these people know who you are and what your story is and how you were my first hero and how much I appreciate what you did for me and everything that the world said about you, how you were a failure, I'm going to let the world know who you are. And that's what I was able to do. So the Hall, once you get in, forget about the team that you're joining, the people that have helped you. It's their moment. So get outside of yourself and don't rob those people of their moment, because at the Hall, we're going to be okay. Like the members in the Hall, over 310 members, we're going to be okay. We're going to have 150 live Hall of Famers at that weekend. We're going to be okay. We wanted to invite T.O. in to embrace him. But in his decision, man, he's denied a lot of people who were significant in his life memories that they won't be able to get back. There will be no more enshrinement, because next year it'll be about next year's class. So T.O. in being very, very selfish, the voters and all the things that they said, man, he made the voters look awful right in making this decision.
One thing you've said to me in the past is, man, you can't be a jerk forever. And I like to think, I hope to think when you've said that, you're not talking about me specifically, just as general wisdom. Can't be a jerk forever. T.O.'s 44 years old, man.
Enough.
He ain't going to change. He is who he is. He is, in my eyes, without question, one of the 6 greatest wide receivers in the history of this game. I went on television, or at the time, I guess it was radio, because it was a few years ago, and talked about what an abomination it was that he wasn't first ballot, what an embarrassment it was he wasn't second ballot. I am glad he got in, because it is about how good of a football player you are. He deserves to be on that team with you guys. But I don't know how many friends he deserves on that team. And I've watched your Hall of Fame speech. I watched it live. I watched it again shortly before you and I met in Vegas. And I watched it again once right before the show started to show my kids. And your high school coach was there. Your brothers who I've met, but also your best friends whose names I can't remember, I apologize, who you brought with you.
Yes, Tiggy, Dwight, Al Milton.
Right,
yes.
Those guys. And I also have seen you get as emotional talking about what this meant to you as I've seen you get about talking about anything in your life. And to be this old, not that 44 is old, but this mature, you're a grown man. And to be this petty and this short-sighted is remarkable to me, because this is the last, once you retire, your last great athletic moment is, if you are fortunate enough to be inducted, those 12 to 22 minutes you have on that stage. It's your last other moment of an adoring crowd where all eyes on you, and you can do, listen, if you want to do what Jordan did and settle old scores, you can.
Right. But
But if you also want to, I believe you could do what Chris Carter did, which is present a side people didn't know about you. People knew your story in Philly, they knew your story in Minnesota, and they knew you on television as, and I say this very respectfully because I yearn to be one, a bit of a loudmouth at times, a little brash, and a guy that knows a lot of football. People, I didn't know you as the emotional family, salt of the earth where I came from guy. You have a chance to reinvent yourself or represent the best version of yourself. And for T.O. not to do it, it's shocking to me.
I didn't know that much, or maybe I didn't appreciate that much about the Hall of Fame until and I've known you for years, but until we started working on the show. And I'm reminded of it every morning because when I introduce you, I say Hall of Famer Chris Carter, because that's important to you. And as your teammates, it's important to us because I realize what a coveted position it is and how few people do get in there. And I think what you said is important. For all the whatever you want to call it, that T.O., this reputation that T.O. has built up as a player, playing, and then for a few years after, and the pettiness he showed trying to get in and then pretending he didn't care, but he did care with the jackets and all of it. A lot of that probably could have gone away with a very impassioned, beautiful speech there, talking about who's important to him and maybe why he played with a chip on his shoulder, or explaining some of who he is. And we're going to be robbed of it, too, to really understand why T.O. is the way he is. Is there any part of the Hall, the voters, you, a member of the Hall of Fame, that regrets letting him in or considering him, knowing he really hasn't changed after all of this?
I know in talking to voters, I know the night before the Hall, in talking to 3 to 5 voters, I know they have regret now because a couple of them said, Chris, it's enough is enough. It's time to let T.O. in. I said, I agree. He should have been in the first time. Like, I didn't believe what they did to him the first time. So you'll never hear Chris Carter say that T.O. was not a first ballot Hall of Famer. That's true. But Lynn Swann, he waited 13 years. John Stallworth waited 9 years. Andre Reed, 8 years.
You waited 6?
Tim Brown, 5. Chris Carter, 6. That's what the Hall does. Alan Page, the great Alan Page, the honorable judge, Supreme Court judge. He wasn't a first ballot Hall of Famer. Did that ruin the rest of his life? Our friend Michael Strahan, very disappointing. Didn't get in the first ballot. Did that hurt him going on in life? I mean, Lynn Swann's the athletic director for USC. Like, we have so many Hall of Famers that have used the Hall as a springboard to go on to do so many other great things that T.O. is definitely going to miss out on. So I'm going to say I know that there's regret because there's Sterling Sharp. He could have got in. Lester Hayes, L.C. Greenwood, Jim Marshall.
Yep.
There's other players, Too Tall Jones. There's other players, Jack Tatum. He's not in the Hall. So, man, you should have told the voters, even if you let me in, I'm not going to go. Then, hey, they would have put someone else in who I know would have cried crocodile tears and would have told the story of all the people that were responsible for them getting to what we call football heaven.
I just want to remind people one thing. The other wide receivers going in is Randy Moss. Randy, I feel, was treated more unfairly in his career by the media than T.O. was. The media didn't necessarily love either guy. T.O. did a lot of it to himself. Randy's story also is one of overcoming amazing obstacles. Randy is a guy who you talk about when he walked into the Vikings locker room carrying a bag of hot Cheetos and Twizzlers or whatever it was, and the man he's become.
Yes.
Randy Moss has reinvented himself over the last 20 years. And
he's going to be a great Hall of Famer.
Exactly.
Like, he's going to be great, and he's going to realize the benefits, all the different programs we have, all the different trips that we go on. Where have you been the last couple years with the Hall? Been to Mexico, been to Israel. Why? Because that gold jacket.
Yep.
I mean, companies call me and ask me to speak all around the country. Last question typically is, will you bring your gold jacket? And typically that comes with a little extra price and everything, too. But,
of course.
But it's just amazing the level of respect. Think about this. 22,000 men have played in the National Football League. This is our 99th season. Only 310 have a jacket or a bust. Only 310 families in the world, 310 mamas say, that's my boy who's one of the best football players that ever played this game. That's how exclusive the club is. And, man, we welcome. Even those who don't want to be in the Hall, we still welcome. And we're so, as a Hall of Famer and as a group, I know I can speak for everyone, man, proud of what the Hall stands for.
Thanks for sharing that, Cece. We're going to take a break. Much more First Things First right after this.
Him too.
And that guy also. Time to stop from Stories to Start Your Morning. Brought to you by Ace, the helpful place. Ben Roethlisberger missed some of the Steelers' OTAs last week. The reason why? Oh, this is rich. Big Ben said, if Coach asks me to be here every day, I'd be here every day. But he hasn't asked me to do that. Nick, what was your reaction to these comments?
Mike Tomlin not allowed to ask him. It's a CBA violation. The hell has Ben talking about? My reaction is exactly that. The hell you talking about, man?
If your coach got to ask you to do it, then it ain't in your heart to be great to do it. Denny Green didn't ask me to stay after practice, catch all those balls. Catch that with one hand, man. I need you to catch them behind your back. Catch your other hand. Oh, practice your releases. No, you're supposed to do that on your own. Coach don't have to ask you, Ben. Stop. Yeah. But not surprised.
No, no one at this table is. Moving on to Game 4 tonight, Cavs looking to avoid being the first team swept in the finals since 2007. Nobody wants that on their resume. LeBron's already got it. His Cavs were swept by the Spurs that year. All right, CC, what do you think happens tonight?
I think Cleveland's going to squeak it out. It's going to be a tough win and everything, especially mentally, because when you're down 3-0, it's easy to have mental fatigue and to give up, realizing, man, this might be one of the greatest basketball teams ever. Yeah, the hope that we can't win the series, but it's about trying to win quarters now, not games. They need to win the first quarter, get to halftime, that onslaught in the third quarter. It's about trying to win quarters now. No, Cavs get it done tonight.
I mean, I think the Cavs get it done tonight. Last year in Game 3, or in Game 4, pardon me, they obviously avoided the sweep, but they did that behind 86 first-half points and 24 three-pointers. They're not going to be able to duplicate that. What we do know, though, the single most reliable thing in sports is LeBron James in elimination games, putting up monster lines. He'll be great. I do think the Cavs will win at a game I'll be attending.
All right, moving on to the 76ers. Lesson to all you kids out there, stay in school and don't use multiple Twitter burner accounts when you run an NBA team. Brian Colangelo resigned after his wife admitted using the burner accounts he had been linked to. However, a report found that Colangelo was revealed as the source of the sensitive information tweeted out. He continues to dispute the allegations. Head coach Brett Brown will run team operations until the Sixers find a replacement.
You certainly can't diminish the stability and professionalism that a GM can provide. But when you say, why did somebody go play someplace, you would think it was because I'm playing next to Ben Simmons, Joel Embiid, and Markelle Fultz. And I hope they respect the style of play that we play. I hope they research me and my coaching staff. As it relates especially to free agency, I think we're going to be just fine. I think we're going to go into the marketplace proud. We're going to go into the marketplace having a real story to tell. And I think that this is going to be an incredibly attractive place of destination for many free agents.
Nick, all that is well and good, but you want a general manager, I assume, to go out and try to recruit the greatest player almost to ever play the game in LeBron James. And this is a very important offseason for the Sixers. Do you think this will impact the Sixers in free agency?
Hell yes. Of course it will. Now, I know there's a scenario where it impacts them positively. That by this time next week, they've hired David Griffin. He has the relationship with LeBron. He knows exactly what he's doing. Fine. But there's also a scenario where a team that took 9 days to figure out we can't keep Colangelo doesn't quickly hire the GM, or that David Griffin doesn't want that job, whatever it is. And then you're in a situation not so dissimilar to what the Cavs had last year, which is uncertainty at the top, inexperience at the top, and an issue with, it's not just can we sign LeBron. You want to be real creative this summer, Philly? You want to try to sign Paul George and then execute a sign and trade for LeBron? Why don't you try to bring them both in? Why don't you try to see every available option? Because here's what I know. The Rockets are going after LeBron. They got the best GM in all of sports in Daryl Morey. The Celtics are potentially going after LeBron. They got a really good GM in your guy, Danny Ainge. The Lakers are going after LeBron. They got Magic Johnson, who even if you doubt some of his CBA acumen, you cannot doubt his recruiting ability, charisma, and the lure of that. It can't be a good thing that you lost your GM to a ridiculous scenario.
Ridiculous.
Days before the open of the most important free agency in your team's recent history.
Well, it won't be a good thing unless they're able to find someone competent in David Griffin and move on quick. Then it could be a good thing.
Yes.
It could be just like L.A. LeBron has a home there. There's things in Hollywood LeBron would like to accomplish. So there's a little glitz and glamour there in L.A., but that's also one of the same things that Philly could have with Griffin if they hire him immediately because he's familiar with LeBron and the people who run LeBron's world. So they would have a little edge on maybe some of the opposition. The thing that you mentioned is it's just not one player, and they might have to move one of their assets that they have. So it becomes very important by the end of next week, by the end of Friday, that they're able to get in place. Now, yesterday, when we went off the show, we didn't know. All the intel was telling us that, he wasn't going to be fired. I didn't believe that. And if I was a player, I believe they were going to be in a worse situation if they didn't get the intel to release him. So they've done that. I think that the coach and the organization and their facilities have a great deal of respect around the league. So I think that will get them beyond. Because if you're a free agent and we don't have the Twitter scandal, if we don't have the tweeting, we don't have that, you're not going to Philly because the general manager.
Of course.
You're going there because all the other things. So if they're able to get this done quickly, I don't believe it will help them moving or hurt them moving forward.
But it's also how, while you're not picking somewhere because of a general manager can, in a free agency meeting, present to you the reasons you should go there. Like, I know that in Miami, with Pat Riley, who, by the way, they will pursue LeBron this offseason, that when he goes to these free agency pitch meetings, he brings Andy something, I can't remember the guy's last name, I apologize, who explains all the tax ramifications. Here's the deal. No state tax in Miami, so even we can't offer you as much money.
Yeah, the whole presentation.
The whole presentation. Think about the teams LeBron's thinking about. Reportedly, the whole list. San Antonio, they got Pop and R.C. Buford. Miami's got Pat Riley. I went over who the Lakers, the Rockets, the Celtics have. Toronto got brought up recently. Masai Ujiri is excellent. Like, you could be walking into a gunfight with a knife if you don't have an actual stable GM.
And this could be the move or moves that solidify the process, which leads to a championship. We know they need a player or two. That general manager becomes very important, especially when you look at the big gun hunting with the general managers at those other places.
Cheesesteaks. The Sixers have cheesesteaks.
That's a good point, Jenna. It's true.
So,
and
Pat's
the Liberty
or Geno's.
I don't do either of them. I do Smith.
Oh, you're such
on
a
State
hipster.
Street.
Oh,
I'm
they must have
telling
a tofu version.
Nope, but it's...
Oh, you disgust me.
The Cavs are facing elimination tonight in Game 4 against the Warriors. LeBron James was recently asked what makes the Warriors so successful. And in answering the question, he shed some light on what makes a great basketball player so successful. It's not ball skills or shooting ability or success from outside. It's something that makes my partner Nick Wright very happy. It's a high basketball IQ. Here's more from LeBron James.
So now everyone's trying to figure that out. How do you put together a group of talent, but also a group of minds as well, to be able to compete with Golden State, to be able to compete for a championship?
It's smarts. I didn't know it. It was smarts. That was the answer. Cece, what was your reaction to what LeBron had to say?
LeBron is right, because not only Golden State, if you just get consumed with, oh, they get up and down, oh, they shoot threes, like you're really missing who Golden State is as an organization. They have done things in a smart way as far as the facilities, the type of environment at the facility, the type of music they're going to play at the facility, type of food, how they're going to travel, the lack of pressure or intensity that they put or responsibility that they put on the players. It is a very player-friendly organization, which leads to Steve Kerr, which also leads to that locker room. And that's one of the reasons that Kevin Durant said that he wanted to go there. So, yes, but they do have some smart basketball players.
Well,
I mean, not only are they good, but by the way, they're smart. But look at all.
What is a smart basketball?
This is what it means. Look at all the great runs in basketball. You will see these two common things: a lot of talent and a very, very high basketball IQ. That means they think things through. They realize it's not only on the physical skills. They can implement a game plan, and they can make adjustments throughout the game to be not so just locked into only doing one thing. If you look at the great Lakers teams, they always talk about, man, they were Showtime, but also they were remarkable in the half-court offense as far as setting Kareem up, Worthy, Magic Johnson, basketball players that think a play or two ahead of the frame, basketball players that understand what they're trying to do to you offensively and defensively. That's what LeBron is talking about. That's what Golden State has. It's not just talent. They got a lot of smart. Look at Clay, high basketball IQ. Steph Curry, now he's amazing, dribbling everything, very high basketball IQ, gets a little careless with the basketball, but still has a tremendous basketball IQ.
And those aren't their two smartest players.
Yes.
Draymond and Iggy are their two smartest players as basketball smarts, without question. This team, when they won the title pre-KD, Draymond, listen, I criticize Draymond for his antics all the time. The guy is a brilliant basketball player. Iggy might be one of the 10 smartest basketball players in the league as far as reading situations before they occur, anticipating results, knowing what other teams are trying to do, knowing what other players like to do, and being able to read and react accordingly. I thought this was very interesting hearing LeBron say this. I had dinner around a month ago with someone very, very close to LeBron, and we were just talking basketball in general. And the person that was brought up was Gerald Green. And it was brought up in this regard. He said, listen, he goes, you realize Gerald can jump higher than LeBron and is a better three-point shooter than LeBron. And Gerald was unemployed 3 months ago. Why? The guy never learned the game. The guy, he was a great story this year. I'm not trying to throw him under the bus out of nowhere, but his basketball IQ, I'll use another guy, my pal, JR.
Wow.
JR, when he got to the league, people forget this, was a high flyer. Slam dunk contest type of guy. Knockdown shooter. Why is he bounced around? Why was the pinnacle of his career 6th man of the year? Because the guy don't play smart. Like, LeBron understands, and he references it a lot. He talks about his gifts from God, the physical gifts. But the thing LeBron believes, I know this, that he believes his biggest edge on the league is, he thinks he's the smartest guy from a basketball perspective in the league by a country mile. That he's lapped the field as far as knowing what teams and players are trying to do. That's why, think back to what he said about Game 1 and the call. What made him so upset about the Kevin Durant play? He said, I read that play as well as any play in my entire career. That's not a physical thing. That's a mental thing. And so you can't, Van Gundy says it all the time, man, dumb will get you beat. And you can't beat super smart if you aren't super smart.
And it's a legacy. If you look at the greatest players ever, Bill Russell, Jerry West, and you want to move a little, Oscar Robertson. I mean, we have been blessed in the NBA that whoever God put the best talent in, he put work ethic and also basketball IQ and smart. I mean, Jerry West is still brilliant till this day. Hakeem Olajuwon, Jordan, Magic, Larry Bird.
Larry Bird's running a team.
Is there a player that's been successful with a high IQ that just doesn't necessarily have the great skills but has managed to maintain a decent career?
Oh, a decent career, absolutely. I mean, you get Shane Battier. I'll jump out.
Shane Battier is a good role player, but I would say of the superstars, I would say Steve Nash. Now, he's remarkable as far as his feet and shoot, but his basketball IQ, he could overcome his size. That's how he got those 2 MVPs.
And the flip side, the only Pantheon guy that I think of, people are going to give me a hard time about this, that I think of wasn't a brilliant basketball mind was Shaq. Shaq didn't have to ever become that. Maybe he could have, but I don't feel Shaq ever became that because Shaq was so dominant from day one. He never had to hone that part of his game. But Kobe, for all the criticism I give him, Kobe is a basketball savant.
And you see a lot of that now in
this detail. You see it in the detail thing, like those guys. It's hard to be this great at any sport, but particularly basketball, which is a bit of a ballet, and not have the IQ, the basketball IQ that goes along with it.
All right, I'm going to use my IQ to read what's in the teleprompter now. I can do that because I'm so smart. Coming up, how much will losing Julian Edelman's suspension hurt the Patriots?
That's so perfect!
First things first, Chris Canton, it goes together, boom, beautifully. We love having you here.
I appreciate that. It's great to be here.
I'm going to go start talking now. That's
do
what I'm
this.
going to do. The New England Patriots, more specifically, Tom Brady got some bad news yesterday. He might not have his favorite receiver to throw to come week 1. Wide receiver Julian Edelman is facing a 4-game suspension for violating the league's performance-enhancing drug policy. The policy is you can't take them. Okay? Edelman missed all of last season with a torn ACL. Would be a tough blow to the wide receiver core, which lost Brandon Cooks and Danny Amendola in the offseason. Chris Canton, how big a deal is Edelman's 4-game suspension for Tom Brady and this Patriots offense?
Well, it's an issue because Edelman, when healthy, is one of Tom's favorite targets. So you look at him, he's had 381 targets over the past 4 years. Of course, he was out all of last season. So this is somebody that Tom is comfortable throwing the football to. And the Patriots, their offense is largely productive in part because of what they get from the slot position. And Edelman is a master when it comes to being a slot receiver and being able to pick up those yards, keep the chains moving. Now, it's going to look a little bit different with Edelman out of the offense, not being available for that slot target. You know, he lost Brandon Cooks, who was a big receiver for him last year. They're going to have to plug in Jordan Matthews. They're going to have to look at some other options, maybe production out of the backfield with Sony Michel, one of their draft picks. That's how they'll try to offset it. but that's where those targets will go while Edelman is out of the offense.
Well, and so this is a tough one for me because my gut reaction is, man, you lose Brandon Cooks, you lose your left tackle. Now Edelman's gone the first 4 games of the year. You don't think the defense is going to be great because the defense was bad last year, so even if it improves, the improvement goes from bad to average, not bad to great. And then I'm like, man, I saw the Patriots not have Tom Brady for 4 games and go 3-1. I saw them not have Edelman for all of last year and be fine. So I'm conflicted on this. The logical side of my brain says you can't lose your best weapon on offense that isn't your quarterback or your tight end and just be fine, especially when it's a team that already lost its best weapon on offense that wasn't its quarterback or tight end in Cooks. And the history part of my brain says, man, they're always fine. Like, at least in the short term, that Bill Belichick, he might not be able to fix a wound, but he can cauterize that thing short term as well as any coach I've ever seen, and then they'll have him come week 5. So I'm conflicted on this, see?
Yes, I'm not conflicted. They will replace the productivity that was there last year. Oh, he wasn't there. They actually went to the Super Bowl without him. So 2 players, Rob Gronkowski and Sony Michel. Sony Michel, the rookie running back from the University of Georgia. Those 2 will be utilized more in those first 4 weeks. New England, like no team, man, they're the next guy up. And they have 3 months basically to adjust before. It's not like, he gets hurt, he messed up a shoulder the last preseason game, then they have to adjust after training camp. They have the rest of the mini camp, the OTAs, the summer, and all of training camp to be able to get ready. The thing that I'm more worried about is Edelman's reputation. Because for me, he's a person that's self-made. Quarterback, came from Kent State. He's got a remarkable story. Now, how do I get in the PED program, man, when I'm supposed to be some workout warrior? And then, by the way, not only that, but he's doing some work with Tom Brady's guy.
That's the more interesting part of this.
I'm not as concerned about the productivity. I'm concerned about the reputation of a guy who had earned a great deal of respect for me. Man, I ran into him last year in L.A., and I told him I really got a lot of respect for his game. He said, well, Chris, I like you as an announcer now, but I used to not like you. I was like, well, why that? He said, yeah, when early in my career, you were hard on me. I said, well, you weren't no good. I mean, that wasn't my fault. So now he's become one of the prominent wide receivers. And in the back of my mind, as someone who analyzes wide receivers and football players, I'm wondering how much of that was assisted along the way by this PED, or was this a mistake? That's something that I'm trying to figure out, Chris.
And that's a fair question, CC. Now, when it comes to a player like Edelman coming off of the situation with the ACL injury, I'm willing to give him the benefit of the doubt in this situation. I don't want to try to cast aspersions on his entire career. I can understand a player's mentality when they're trying to get past an injury and trying to recover and be available
let's just
for
say
his
this.
team.
What if this was Tom Brady? Would we think different? If this was Rob Gronkowski, would we think different? We'd be like, oh, I knew. So why do we change so much? Because he's undersized wide receiver? Because there were other Patriots that this happened to.
I think people are more generous when a guy's trying to get back from an injury.
Yes.
Well, they're more empathetic?
Yeah, I am. I know this
Well, because you can understand it, though. You can understand.
If you were going to do it, why you would.
We have hundreds of knee injuries every year where guys come back.
Correct.
The technology, there are no excuses for using PEDs.
I think that the other interesting connection here is the connection to Tom Brady's trainer, Alex Guerrero, who's in the locker room all the time, who's had some conflict, or used to be, until Bill Belichick said he couldn't be anymore, who's had conflict with Bill Belichick, it's been on record, Belichick doesn't want Guerrero anywhere near his players. Now all of a sudden this comes out. He came out with a statement separating himself.
Wasted no time.
He threw Edelman under the bus almost.
People didn't see it. This was to me, shocking in the timing and the strength of the statement from Alex Guerrero. By the time I had seen, I was napping when this suspension came down. By the time I woke up, not only did I see the suspension, I saw Guerrero's statement, which said, listen, some guys work with multiple trainers. Julian must be one of them guys, because we don't do that around here.
And then went so far as to say, we take this approach, holistic approach.
Now,
we give this to our
It should
players.
be known this is a guy in Alex Guerrero that the Federal Trade Commission he's gotten on the wrong side of because he was trying trying to sell you some juice that might prevent, if not cure, cancer.
Yeah, people have described him as a snake oil salesman.
And
that's kind of
fairly so. If you at least at his past practices, talking about certain water helping your brain deal with concussions, like some really what I would consider slimy stuff, and he comes out and says, this isn't how we do things, whether it is how they do things or not how they do the things. I think Bill Belichick sees this news and says, man, I told you so. Yeah. Like, I think Belichick almost would take the trade. You don't get Edelman for 4 games, but you now have impenetrable evidence that you were right, that they were wrong, that there's a reason that you wanted Gronk not to go there. There's a reason you kicked him out of the facility because, look, got a guy suspended, even if Guerrero had nothing to do with it.
And there's also that thing with Tom Brady. Man, don't try to tell me how to run this team. Now, you can run your body however you want to, but I'm going to do what's best for the organization because if they had not severed that relationship, man, we'd be talking about a whole nother set of things. If he was on staff for the Patriots today, oh my goodness, we would be accusing them, take back all their trophies. Like we would be coming up with all different types of scenarios and bad stories out of New England.
No, you're right. But to your point, Nick, it's validation for Bill Belichick, the decision that he made. He's now justified in his position. And you want to keep away from a situation in the building where the players are conflicted. They don't know who to turn to. You want to make sure, as the head of the organization, that the players are trusting the people that you employ to take care of their health. Because it's a what have you done for me lately? And you can't do anything for Bill Belichick unless you're available to be on the field.
Chris Canty, stick around. We'll see you later on in the show. Coming up, did the Cavs blow a chance to win the finals? That's next on First Things First. Welcome back to First Things First. I don't know if that made the air, but that would have been an interesting little gift.
Ladies are taking over the show.
Herself to a volleyball tournament she wasn't invited to. That was nice.
Every day, baby, every day. NBA analyst and my future volleyball coach teammate, Sarah Kustok, joins the show.
I'm in. Don't listen to
Good to see you, Sarah.
Don't listen to us.
Love it, Sarah. All right, Sarah, in an effort to simplify things for fans, the NBA gods gave us the exact same everything as last year. Same teams, Warriors and Cavs, same scenario, Warriors up 3-0. Same stars, LeBron and KD and Steph, but will it end the same way? LeBron will need a lights-out performance. If the Cavs lose tonight, it'll be LeBron's 4th finals loss in 5 years.
We've had an opportunity to win 2 of these games in this 3-game series so far, and we haven't come up with it. Obviously, from a talent perspective, if you look at Golden State, from their top 5 best players to our top 5 players, you would say that they're stacked better than us. I mean, let's just speak truth. The room for error versus a team like this is slim to none. And I think I said last night, it's like playing the Patriots, it's like playing San Antonio. The room for error is slim to none. And when you make mistakes, they make you pay because they're already more talented than you are. But they also have the minds behind it, too, and they also have the championship DNA. So.
Said it well. Do you agree, Sarah, with LeBron that the Cavs have had the opportunity to win in this finals?
I first want to say I loved this quote by LeBron, everything that he said. But the most interesting thing to me was that he said the margin of error, how it's slim to none. Draymond Green yesterday, he came out and he said that we know that we don't even have to play our best game and we can still win. And to me, that's the mentality of both of these groups. And I think LeBron talking about the opportunity to have won 2 games, not so much about winning the series, but being up 2 games, absolutely. Without a doubt. And this goes back to game 1, and we are going to talk about this till we're blue in the face. But that changed the entire complexion of the series. And to me, one of the biggest things about this Cavaliers team, and LeBron talked about 1 through 5, but it's just their mental engagement. And when we see their mental engagement, when we see their effort, how do they play some of those 50-50 balls, the hustle plays? And to me, they're a team that when things are going well, it's great. They play for each other. We see the bench, we see the activity, we see how enthusiastic they are. When things are bad, it's bad. And they fracture, and I think that's where things started to fall apart and got us to where we are.
Listen, I don't think it's fair to say the Cavs should be up 2-1, because I don't think that's accurate. I think game 2, the Warriors were in control of throughout. The Cavs could have stolen game 2, but it would have been stealing.
But that's a lot like LeBron. There was opportunities in those 2 games that they could have won 2 of those games.
In games 1 and 3, there were opportunities, but I also want to let's go back to game 1 and just, if the game had ended with JR getting that rebound, going back up with it like everyone wanted, and him missing, and the Warriors win in overtime, then yeah, we're still upset, or people are still upset about the call, the overturned call, but we can go back to that call. If in real time that had been called a block on LeBron, then nobody cares. Like that was a 50-50 call that could have gone either way. It was only because the referees, I believe, went outside the rules to change the call, and then the JR blunder. But either team could have won game 1, and either team could have won game 3. So I always look at series like, okay, your 50-50 games, just split them. So what should the series be? Probably 2-1 Golden State. It's hard for me to sit here and say the series should be 2-1 Cleveland, even if more breaks go their way.
Yeah, you can't just. This is what I always like to bake into it. Well, what if Golden State would have been pushed? Because they're a great team. Like, they don't have any different levels that they can go to. Now, Cleveland, we know they don't have the luxury. If they don't play well, they will lose. Golden State does have. They do have that in their back pocket. But also, when you have more talent, when you have more shot makers, when you have more options, no matter, Steph gets in foul trouble. Okay, they get out of it. KD goes on fire. Steph can't hit a shot. Clay is unbelievable for a couple quarters. So they have so much talent.
They also have the ability to flip a switch on and off. Like, they could play terrible for the first 2 quarters and decide the 3rd quarter is when they're going to step it up and win a game in the 3rd quarter. The Cavs don't have that. They can't flip a switch.
I agree, but I do think that the Cavs have different levels. And we've seen even a guy like J.R. Smith, and I'm not saying I think the Cavs would necessarily be up 2-1 or that they would win the series, but I do think each of their players is fragile in the sense of their confidence or in the direction that they move. And I also think, and with the Warriors, maybe like they can flip a switch. They were playing in a game 7 at Houston, down at the half, double digits, and they turn around and won that game. But to me, they were a team that Houston pushed them to the brink. So how would they have responded had the Cleveland Cavaliers actually won game 1 on their home floor?
Right. Jen, I think you make a good point about flipping the switch, but I want fans to understand sometimes flipping the switch is not a negative thing. The Cavs haven't been able to flip a switch because they're not very, very athletic. They're the oldest team in the playoffs. So, yeah, they go through lapses, but they can't flip a switch and go from playing good to playing great basketball as if the Warriors can. When you talk about flip a switch, people always think it's a negative. But you can be a great team and go from a good level to a great level and sustain it for a long period of time. So that's also another version of flipping the switch.
But the other point about margin of error that you allude to, and that when Draymond says we don't even have to play great, I mean, that is the part of this series and the part really about the Warriors that frustrates people so much. Game 1, Kevin Durant has a bad game. He's 8 of 22. He's inefficient. And guess what? They win despite it. Game 2, pardon me, Steph Curry is 6 of 18 from the field through 3 quarters. How much did that hurt him? They were up 10 through 3 quarters. Game 3, Steph starts 1 of 14, only makes 3 shots the whole game, and they win anyways. Compare that to Kevin Love is having the best NBA Finals he's ever had. LeBron is having statistically the best NBA Finals he's ever had. LeBron is averaging 38, 9, and 11. And they haven't won yet. Kevin Love's averaging 21 and 10, and they haven't won yet. Rodney Hood comes off the bench, gives them 15 points, and they haven't won yet.
And we're calling it spectacular, and great for him. I was so excited for Rodney Hood, but we are calling that an excellent game, and he had 15
He had 15,
points.
and so, that's the margin. The margin is LeBron is one big game away from averaging a 40-point triple-double for the finals. And they're down 3-0. That's why, if you're LeBron, you obviously are thinking about where you play next. And if you're a fan of any other team that doesn't have LeBron, you say, you got to be kidding me. In sports, it's one of the unwritten rules. You never root for injury. But if you're a fan of Oklahoma City, or if you're a fan of Portland, how do you go into next season not saying, man, unless someone gets injured, the hell are we doing here? Like, that's the frustration.